Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magma Ragers episode 20. As always, joined here by Pandemonia. How are you doing, Pandemonia?
I'm good. Just a lot of exciting Hearthstone this past weekend to have to catch up on because of the awkward times, but been good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Obviously, that was the Spring Champs over the weekend, but we'll get to that a bit more later. The first important news that was announced over the weekend, which we're going to dive right into, is the new expansion reveal. And it's been revealed that the new Hearthstone expansion is going to be Knights of the Frozen Throne. So, what are your feelings, first of all, on just the concept for this expansion?
I don't know, like new expansions always get me quite excited. I find it interesting, like they're doing the whole transform hero, like the new mechanics. Obviously, it looks like they're also going a bit back to death, sort of a minor death. They've said it's going to be a minor death rattle themed expansion. So, I mean, especially now that Inzoth is like a card like Inzoth is still in the meta, it should be very interesting to see how Death Rattle, what new Death Rattles they make.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fine balance for them with cards like N'Zoth that so heavily reward Death Rattle. But here we can
Yeah.
see the just the cinematic image for Knights of the Frozen Throne. I think the aesthetic, just talking about before we get into the cards or any of the mechanics or anything like that, I think the aesthetic is actually just really nice as well. Like it's a darker themed
Yeah.
tone to it rather than like even Journey to Ungoro, like, which was a very colorful, really light theme. Even though it's like dinosaurs and stuff, it was still a pretty wacky sort of theme and like
Yeah.
very light-hearted. Like I mean, Karazhan is probably the most
Light-hearted.
extreme version of that
Yeah.
that we've seen in Hearthstone, and this is a much more seemingly darker
Gloomy.
version. I really liked that opening cinematic with Jaina going from like normal Jaina fighting off the darkness to embracing the darkness and her like Death Knight form, which looks super sick. And I'm definitely going to be very interested to see that. And speaking of which, you already briefly mentioned that we're going to be getting new mechanics in the form of these Death Knight or Death Knight versions of the hero classes. So when there was a little bit of a leak about the Knights part of the Frozen Throne Lich King related expansion, there was some speculation that maybe Death Knights were coming to Hearthstone. People immediately just pretty much thought this would just be a new class, right? As it is
Yeah.
in like WoW and stuff like that. But instead, they've done something which is also thematic to how it works in the Warcraft universe. And there's going to be new cards that allow you to turn your existing hero class or hero into the Death Knight version. So the example that we saw was Deathstalker Rexar, which is a 6 mana card. Um, so these cards cost mana as usual, and they transform your hero in kind of the similar way to Jaraxxus, except that they're not actual minions, so they can't be like dirty ratted out or anything like that.
And they
Uh,
have a battle cry.
yeah, they like spells with a battle cry, which is kind of weird if you think about it.
Yeah.
So we have Deathstalker Rexar. It's just 6 mana. Uh, Death Knight card. I don't know exactly what we call
Yeah.
it. Death Stalker for now. And the battle cry is to deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So a consecration effect, pretty much.
Yep.
And it also gives your hero an extra 5 armor.
But
So,
just interesting to note, just before we go
yep.
on, is that it doesn't change your health total or
Yes.
reset it or anything. It simply adds 5 armor to whatever you currently have.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing of when you compare it to Jiraxxus or
Yes.
any healing, any change of hero effects.
Yeah.
This
That
just
is one of the reasons also why it's different and doesn't isn't like a minion like Jiraxxus, right?
yeah
Because Jiraxxus put transforms you into Jiraxxus, which means you have 15 health because that's the amount of health Jiraxxus has.
yeah
Yeah. And when you get transformed into Ragnaros by Major Domo, you have 8 health because Ragnaros only has 8 health. Whereas these cases, it's more you keep your same health and it's a transformation. You gain some armor and
get
get
a new
some
hero
effect,
power.
which is, yeah, and a new hero power. That's the other major change, obviously. So the hero power that you get when you become Deathstalker Rexar is Build a Beast. So this is 2 mana hero power as usual, and it reads Craft a custom Zombeast. So what this does is you get to discover a beast, and you discover then a second beast, and you stitch them together, as the meme now goes. Uh, you stitch them together, and you get a minion that has the combined effects and mana cost and stats of those two minions, right? So if you combine a Vicious Fledgling with a Stone Tusk Ball, you will get a 4 mana 3/3 with charge and adapt whenever it attacks a hero. So,
Interesting to note, there was some a post about the uh, like some of the rules governing, like I think they said the first beast will always have text on it.
okay.
The second one will always have like a mechanic, or it could be vanilla, and they're never going to offer you anything that costs they're going to cost 5 mana
Okay.
or less.
Oh, so
But
you can't get a like a high main into a webs into like
no,
a Stone Tusk
this
Ball.
is the text.
No,
You'll
no
use the
charging
power.
high mains. Feels
Uh,
bad, man.
you'll use the power of Discover to merge a beast with lengthy card text into another one with a keyword or two to create an ultimate weapon. The beasts do have to be 5 mana or below, though, so don't expect to create any King Crush abominations.
Ah, okay. I mean, that makes sense, I suppose. I thought maybe they
Yeah.
would just have some way that if you pick, let's say, a high main on the first one, you wouldn't be offered any beasts above 5 on the second one or something like that. Okay, that's an interesting change to what you
Uh,
have to consider.
the
You could still get
forums,
something like Thunder Rhino, which would be
yeah.
pretty insane a lot of the
The,
time.
the, the the forums are already going quite like crazy with like potential. So Bittertide Hydra with Stunt Explore.
Yeah, 6 mana, 8/8 charge.
No, 9/9.
Oh yeah, 9/9 charge, you're right.
People are already talking about
That's
like
good.
scavenging hyena with things mixed into it. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously vicious fledgling.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Uh,
Vicious Fledgling one would actually be a 4/4 charge.
uh,
Yeah, not a 3/3, as I first said.
King
Yeah,
Bookler and Jungle Panther for a 6 mana 9/7 style.
I
It's just
mean,
amusing to see
I
the
mean, Jungle
comment.
Panther and Fledgling is also serious business, right?
Yeah, like
What's
seven
that?
five.
7/5 stealth that adapts when it attacks a hero.
So it's
So,
strictly better than a Ravenhold Assassin.
yes. Although that's 5 mana, right? Whereas
No,
the
Ravenhold
pan.
Assassin is 7 mana.
Oh, it's a 7 mana 7/5. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm thinking of Ventrico,
Yeah.
but that doesn't have stealth. Yeah. Anyway, that is definitely strictly better than, and it's a beast, so yeah, triangle.
And it's amusing because people are really debating like how's Angry Chicken and Knuckles going to interact.
Ooh, yeah, just angry
Okay.
chicken with anything is pretty good, right?
um, Jet Scale plus Emperor Cobra. I'm just reading some of the combinations here, and they're really amusing what people have already thought of.
Well, oh yeah, you can't go dread scale acid more because acid more is 7.
Yeah. But Jet Scale plus Emperor Cobra will clear the board.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's some potential interesting things here.
Yeah, you could also get giant wasp with
Yeah.
the dread scale instead of the emperor cobra, then you get the stealth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. What are
So
your thoughts on the like the mechanic as a whole, right? Just the idea of transforming your hero into
I mean,
the
it
Death
adds a
Knight version.
completely new dynamic to the game, and I always enjoy that. You always got to just be careful though in terms of if they like we've just seen the introduction of quests. Now we see this. If they introduce too many new things too quickly, they're gonna it's gonna reach a point where they're gonna struggle to introduce brand new concepts to the game.
Yeah,
So I think that they've got to be quite careful because I mean this is obviously, as quite a lot of people have already said, this is going to change the game significantly.
yeah,
It's not just new cards, it's a new mechanic, it's a new way of playing the game. So it will be interesting to see, and I'm quite excited. The direction Hearthstone's going. Like new stuff is always fun, and we'll see. I mean, the problem is these could easily end up like the quests, where everybody harps up about them, and then when it comes to actually competitive Hearthstone, two of them see play.
yeah. I think to be honest, that's relatively likely that we'll only see a handful of them see play. Let's say either easily less than like half, I would imagine that would see play. But it's still gonna be pretty interesting. Um, The Rexar one in particular looks to be a more value control oriented
They've been
version of
with that
Rexar,
control hunter
which
for a
is,
long time.
yeah, they kind of took a bit of a pause on that for a while as they were like, okay, fine, we've been pushing that archetype too long and now Hunter's just dumpster. So they gave Hunter back some like tempo cards, like your Crackling Razor Maws and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
And
elephant.
now they're going back. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. I'm not sold on the Control Hunter thing. One of the biggest issues with the Control Hunter has been like AoE traditionally.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty obvious that they then just added that straight up to the Deathstalker Rexar card.
But,
But
expect this to be a lots of Trojan and funny moments, though.
yes,
Like,
yes.
I guarantee you, expect the memes to roll from this card.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with something like this, I mean, we've already got a meme and the card hasn't even been introduced. The whole
Exactly.
stitch them together thing. Like that quickly got made into a GIF and spread across the internet, thanks to the power of Twitter and other means. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's up with the other heroes. Just changing hero powers is actually like such a big deal a lot of the time, right? And we
Like
see how
Justicar.
yeah, like Justicar, and the effect that's had on like Control Warrior now is that they just don't necessarily have a late game win conditions. So if you give the Warrior something that's like that can facilitate a win condition for let's say a Control Warrior deck, then maybe Control Warrior can come back in a form that isn't
Oh,
just
that'd be
Quest Warrior.
great. Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
so yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. I don't really want to speculate too much on the other heroes. We're just going to have to wait and see, and we'll be bringing all the information uh, the moment we get it. Really, we'll be keeping everyone up to date with the spoilers, but the spoilers are only really going to start coming out again on the 24th of July, or at least the scheduled ones. We'll see if we get any sneaky spoilers before then. But the
There are a couple of
24th of
stars to
July.
go over, though, so
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I'm just saying, like, for players, for people that are listening. Um, but yeah, there are some other cards to go over. That the hero power or the Death Knight um, mechanic is not the only new one. There's also Lifesteal has been added to the game. So lifesteal is basically just gaining life for the amount of damage dealt. That's pretty much the easiest way to look at it. So we have Chillblade Champion, which is a 4 mana 3/2 uh, paladin minion with charge and lifesteal. So interesting combination of abilities to give Chillblade Champion. Obviously something that's pretty good in the race if you're like an aggro race or something,
I
it can
think it's
help
so
swing it a
bad,
bit.
though.
But
I think it's just a weak Wicker Flame.
yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it. Wake of Flame is also obviously just a lot better defensively because it actually forces the opponent to attack into it, right?
It has Taunt and Divine Shield, right?
Yeah, yeah, that too.
So.
Maybe if you could stitch it together. No, okay, that doesn't work either. Not that we know of yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the lifesteal is basically an effect that is equivalent to what Wicker Flame had, right? So
And they're actually changing Wicker Flame and Mistress of Pain to have lifesteal.
oh,
They're doing
okay,
what they did with Cobra.
okay, that's cool. Um, and then the other lifesteal card that was revealed was Spirit Lash, which is a 2 mana priest spell that has lifesteal and deal 1 damage to all minions. So your
Now
thoughts on
this
this
card,
being a priest player?
I will say, I think this has potential. Like it's always like it's difficult to see if it will be that good. I mean, basically, it's arcane. It's arcane explosion with sort of bonus.
I mean, that's what people said about Maelstrom Portal, though, to be fair.
Yeah. No,
But
obviously.
but the
So
big
I mean,
difference to
it's a
me with
model.
Maelstrom Portal and Arcane Explosion and Spirit Lash is that shamans have a lot better access to spell power, right? Thanks to their
Yeah.
totem. And I think that's one of the reasons, honestly, that Maelstrom Portal has been a lot more successful than
So
some of the
I
others.
mean, if this does see play in a priest deck, you'll definitely start seeing it with cards like Blood Mage Thanos being run again because 4 mana to do 2 damage AOE and heal. It's basically
Yeah.
similar to Holy Nova, right?
Yep.
Uh, and okay, you kill your blood mage, you draw the card, and you draw the card.
Yeah.
So I definitely,
It also, I mean, it's not that much like Holy Nova because actually it damages your minions, right?
it
So wouldn't
heals
you rather just play Holy Nova unless you wanted
far,
to heal
well.
yourself up a lot? Like from a
This is
position where you
alternative
have
though.
no board, yeah. From a position where you have no board,
It's just victorious.
Spirit Lash is probably better alongside Thelnos there than Holy Nova.
Yeah,
But if you do have board, anyway. I don't
no,
know.
that's yeah.
Like, I mean, we can't really say whether a card is going to be viable or playable or whatever at this point, right? It's like
In a
almost.
vacuum, it looks like a good card. Let's put it that way. Like
You think
I
so?
just think I think it's a pretty good card.
Okay. I mean,
Uh,
I'm just not sure it has a place in Priest,
no, that's what I'm
but
saying. In a vacuum,
yeah.
like it's in a case of will we find a deck for it? That's another question. But I definitely think it's a good card. That's my view on it.
So what? If you kill 2 minions with it and gain 2 life? Because the thing is, the life steal is. I feel like this life steal is actually relatively irrelevant on this. Because most of the time it's only really important if you kill minions, right? Because if they have, let's say, two health minions and you go Spirit Lash, cool, you gain 2 health and then you lose 4 on the backswing, right?
No, definitely. So obviously,
So
yeah, the
it's
aim is to
basically
kill
just
stuff.
all about killing stuff, yeah. And so
Yeah,
I think it definitely is going to be needed to be combined with
or
spell
power,
damage.
or um like what's it like wild pyromancer potentially.
Yeah, I mean, while Pyromancer, it obviously won't gain you the extra life. Um, But yeah, it could also just be good with something like Acolyte of Pain, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because
I
it's
mean
actually a
that's a
way to damage your own minions. It also is a way to damage your own minions for cards like
oh good
um,
god! I just thought that Spirit
for
Clash, the Circle of Healing,
yes,
with
yes, for North Shy Cleric Circle Healing. That's about what I was about to say.
the good old days of Wild Pyromancer,
Yep.
Circle of Healing days.
Although
Oh
to be
boy,
honest, the Wild Pyromancer one's still better because you have the extra minion on board to
why
heal.
not have both though?
uh, well, Spirit Lash would kill the Pyromancer.
That's why you first power. I mean, I'm just saying like a powered shield shenanigans are
Yes,
possible.
I think it is definitely possible that if Priest has oh and it's like a
Control
good
priest.
combo, right? No, no, no. I'm saying like a good combo. Then these are the kind
Uh,
of cards that can help you get to that combo to win the game, right? So if you're looking at
Combo
something along the
with
lines of
Lightwater.
like Silence Priest or yeah, or Light
Light
Warden.
with this actually possibly because I mean even people are trying to play with Light Wardens with binding heal and a whole
Mm.
bunch of things and circle of healing. I mean this is potentially
Yeah, what I'm saying is like when you add more ways to get those huge draws,
yeah.
you can maybe play a more combo-oriented deck. So that's maybe something we could see. Sometimes you like with those North Shire Clerics and Wild Pyros and Circle of Healings, you have some insane turns where you can draw like half your deck and play a lot of it because it's cheap. And if there's an achievable combo that can do a lot of that work, especially with something like the
With Light Warden, does
with
this count as when this heals you? Is it like Halazel where each instance of healing counts as a heal? So therefore, if you deal
uh,
5 damage, or
hmm.
does it buff your Light Warden 5 times?
I don't know. It's a good question. If
Because
it does,
I
that'll
mean,
make the Light Warden obviously a lot better.
Light Warden combo.
Just need to stitch it together with that beast that gives charge.
let me,
Yeah, no stitching. Once again, no stitching for non-Rexar classes. So yeah, I'm just memeing. Okay, and then we have Death Rattle making a light return in this set. It's going to be interesting to see. You kind of mentioned that as well, and it's going to be interesting to see if Nzoth in particular makes a comeback with more Death Rattle options, right? It
yeah.
also, if they're printing like Death Rattle Synergy, it kind of the one thing that stuck out to me was it's also maybe a little bit more obvious as to why they wanted Sylvanas to rotate out.
Oh, right,
Because
yes.
otherwise the Death Rattle decks, especially with Nzoth, might become too strong if you get too many good Death Rattles on curve. And for cards like this card that we're about to talk about, and that's Shallow Gravedigger. So Shallow Gravedigger is a 3 mana 3/1. So on its stats, it's strictly worse than a Magma Rager. I just have to say that. And then it
Yes.
has Death Rattle. Add a random Death Rattle minion to your hand. So, of course, you can get infinite value with infinite Shallow Gravediggers from Shallow Gravediggers.
Yes.
But
Uh,
also, more importantly, you can get actually good Death Rattles like Ken or Tyrion if you're in Paladin. That's just stupid now that I thought about it.
yeah.
Um,
There's.
so
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
one of those sleeper cards. It potentially can be can be really good, like you say, with especially the classes with good death rattles. I mean, the problem is if you look, there are some really bad death rattles as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that's the real thing. That's like like Zealous Initiate or whatever it is. It's like the one
yeah,
mana 1/1 that gives one of your minions 1/1 when it dies. Woohoo! I never want that. So it's going to be very difficult. We're actually going to have to see probably most of the death rattles that are in the set before we can really say whether it's going to be a good card or not, right? Because you need to actually look at the percentage chance of getting stuff like Ken and what other good things there are to get. And maybe
yeah.
it's playable in Paladin because you will
Canitarian is too
get a
good.
Tyrion but it's nowhere near as good as let's say Stonehill Defender because you're not discovering, right? And
Yeah,
Discover has a higher skew towards class cards, whereas Shallow Gravedigger won't.
yeah.
Uh,
So I
and
think
Shallow
Shadow.
Gravedigger, can that also give you Tyrion in non-Paladin classes?
No, probably not.
No, probably not.
But the chances are also it's based just on the skewing of its stats line. It looks like if it does fits in decks, there are going to be more aggressive decks potentially. It's going to kind of be like your egg napper in a way. I think I kind of see this,
It
because like
does have the same stats as Egg
yeah,
Napper.
what I'm saying in terms of so obviously it's weak on the defensive obviously, but the whole
But
thing is like Stonehill Defender is obviously much better as a defensive card. Obviously the one
yeah,
for
but
whereas
I mean, Shallow Gravedigger, right? Like you would just play Egg Napper, surely. Egg Napper at least leaves two 1/1s on board. That seems more consistent to me for most aggressive decks. And Egg Napper's like
yeah
not been good enough for let's say Token Druid or like I don't know. Shallow Gravedigger, it's just seems to me to be too inefficient and too weak to removal to be worth playing in aggressive decks. It feels like more a deck that wants to generate resources from outside of its deck, right?
yeah
So if you want like
this is
to
like a
have
control deck like
yeah
just get the
to
value.
have some value without having to put too many more death rattles in, because this will count as two death rattles in a way because you'll get a death rattle from this that you can then play and then that will die and then when you're in Zoth, let's say you bring back both. But I mean, obviously, the easy to reach for low hanging fruit with any of these death rattles is going to be to think about how they combine with Zoth.
And
Um,
also as well, I mean
but
we saw last expansion but didn't really become popular. Spirit, what's the Spirit singer? What's that Spirit? No,
Spirit Echo.
no, no,
Or
the form, the legendary, the
oh,
one that took
yeah,
Umbra
Spirit Singer
Soul
Umbra.
Slinger. But yeah, I mean that also interacted with Death Rattle, so it might
True, true.
be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that into Shallow Gravedigger means you're also going to get two death rattles off it.
And
Because you'll
infinite
get
value.
one when it gets played, and yeah, well, better chance at infinite value.
Exactly. Are we going to see Inzoth Warlock return with Dread Steeds and what's it, the cool
Dreadsteed
Dynamancing
is
dude?
out of standard.
Is, is
It
it?
was TGT.
Alright. But the Dynamancer's still in.
Yeah, the Dynamancer is in, but you also have to discard the cards for Dynamancer to work, so that doesn't know. I'm not playing any discard in a deck where I'm going to likely be holding in Zoth in my hand and as a win condition. Those two things do not go together very well.
Yeah, but okay, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what because this card could be potentially decent. The fact that it gives you a free card is always, you know,
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. And then the other legendary, other than the quest one or the quest, the Deathstalker Nuxar that was revealed is Prince Keleseth.
some
Which
people think this is absolutely broken. I'm kind of on the other side of the wall. I think this is absolute garbage.
so yeah, let's at least inform everyone what it is before we get into that debate. But you've definitely loaded this reading out of the card for me. So Prince Keleseth is a 2 mana 2/2 with Battle Cry. If your deck has no 2 cost cards, give all your minions in your deck +1/+1. So +1/+1 to all the minions in your deck seems pretty good. But what deck is going to take really good advantage of that whilst having no other two cost cards in the deck? That's the big question to me.
Yeah, and
Because it's
literally,
two cost cards, not just minions. If it was no two cost minions, there's some decks
yes,
that might get away with that, like
like Druid.
Mage
I meant to say
or
Druid.
Druid, yeah.
Yeah,
But two cost cards, I mean, you
basically,
just have to draw them if you have more than one, but
the
it
only way this
seems
works is if you
dodgy.
hit this, if you don't run any other two cost cards. The only way this works is if you draw this consistently on turn, to play on turn two, right?
Yeah, which is obviously not that likely to happen. So wait, what happens if you? The only deck I was thinking of running this in was like Token Druid. Because you can get away if you cut your mark of your charges and stuff, which is probably just better than playing this, right? Like if
And
you
Power
can
of the
play
Wild, and
you
you
can
cut
play
the
more
Power of the
one
Wild as
drops.
well.
Oh yeah, Power of the
And you
Wild.
cut your Galactic Caller.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
if Pirate Warrior is not a
uh,
thing, but you'll never play this when Pirate Warrior is a thing anyway.
yeah,
I don't know. Actually,
I don't.
yeah, no, 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 no. Even then, all you do is you give the minions in your deck, right? So you actually need to draw them to make it value.
Yeah, and
So
like
no, I
you
just
play
no to this card. Like maybe in a slow mid-range deck that doesn't actually want to do
okay,
anything
but
on
then
two, like
still,
like
oh,
like honestly, one of the only other decks that doesn't play like two drops is Rogue, but then you have Eviscerate, Sap. Like, well, how do you get away with no two cost
I mean,
cards?
okay, let's see if we just quickly, briefly go through the classes and really key two cards. Let's just go through class cards. Druid, Wild Growth, Wrath.
Yep,
Uh,
not cutting
I
those
mean,
for
the
this.
slow versions, the faster versions, you've got Mark of Yesiraj, Power of the Wild. Okay, if we go
Not cutting
Hunter,
those.
wow, you've got all this, you've got every single secret.
Scavenging
Uh,
Hyena.
you've got Scavenging Hyena, you've got Crackling Razormaw, you've got what's it, the one kindly grandmother. So that, I mean, that's a lot
Uh,
of power two drops
in
there.
a control deck, maybe.
Mage, you've got Frostbolt.
Yeah,
You've got Sorcerer
no,
Apprentice,
not
you've got
cutting that.
Arcanologist. You're not playing this in Mage. What Paladin? You what two drops do you have in Paladin?
Um,
Doomsayer, Wild Pyromancer, Hydrologist, Rockpool
Hydrologist is
Hunter,
the main one, right?
uh, Rockpool, Rockpool Hunter if you're playing Murlocs.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, there. I mean, Paladin, you're not Priest. You most likely running Wild Pyromancer. You're running
Radiant
well,
Elemental.
Red Elemental, Purify if you're running the Silence Priest. You know,
Shadowword Pain.
Shadowword Pain. Yeah. So that's Priest. What Rogue? Like you said, Eviscerate Sap.
Eviscerate. I mean, Sap is
Uh,
not run that commonly anymore, but Eviscerate is pretty
Shame.
uncuttable apart from Quest Rogue, but they also obviously have all the bounce minions
Yeah.
for two.
Yeah. They have all the monsters. You got Shaman, which has got your Maelstrom Portal,
Jade
Devolve,
Claws.
Jade Claws, Devolve. Uh, I don't think
Yeah.
lean around that. Then what? Warrior. You've got Fiery War Axe
Yep.
and Slam. And then Warlock. You
Execute.
execute. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Armorsmith.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I mean,
Bloodsail Raider and like Pirate Warrior as well.
and
Whatever.
Armorsmith in control and slower. And then what? Warlock. I'm trying to think what two jobs do. You've got
Um,
Direwolf also if you're playing Zoo.
Yeah, I mean Zoo, you're gonna inevitably have two drops in order
Yeah.
to curve. Like
I
that
mean
was the
slow.
other deck I was thinking of for this was just Zoo because you can get away with just having a lot of one drops and you can draw into them because you have the hero power, right?
So yeah, I'm just thinking that this problem is to
Zoo
try and
is
make a deck
literally the
this
only
work,
deck that this is playable in, maybe.
and even then, no other two drops. There are so many good two drops in
Yeah.
Zoo.
I think the other deck that this could be playable in is a really really slow hunter, one that doesn't even want to do anything on two, but that just doesn't seem like a good deck to me. So.
Because surely Eaglehorn Bow with Secret seems like it probably does a better job at you know keeping the early game, right? But
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I don't see this.
I agree. I agree. I don't think Prince Kelaseth is good. And like every class we go over, it's like
There are
I
so
mean
many.
the the new like Deathstalker cards or the new Death Knight cards are gonna have to change things quite a lot for those classes to cut a lot of those cards. It's not impossible we see those cards cut. I mean, previously
Yeah,
you would have said like, oh, Sap is never going to go out of Rogue, but not even Miracle Rogues play Sap anymore. So
granted. I mean, because I've got cards like Varslan Slayer now in terms of
yeah,
liquid.
so we're gonna have to see what
I
happens.
see it, but
Yeah,
like this is the one.
but
I don't usually call cards bad. A lot of the times, I'm usually quite optimistic, but I'm going to put I'm going to go on the line and say this is just garbage.
I have to agree. The other deck that this could be played in is when you have to play an all legendary deck, right? Because then you can get away with not having any of the two cost cards in it.
But Norwalk could
30
show in that
legendary
deck.
minions. No, dude. I mean, technically, if you're playing 30 legendary minions against 30 legendary minions, I'd probably rather have this than
Think Master.
Millhouse.
Well,
Because Millhouse is the only one that competes with this. Like, Millhouse is tempo, but it's not a tempo match if you're playing that matchup.
we are arguing about.
Yeah, for the totally fun format of only playing legendaries. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think
the
that's
all
enough about Prince Keleseth. Definitely not looking like a great card, but something that I imagine some people are going to enjoy playing with. And that's the beauty of Hearthstone. There's a lot for a lot of different people. But yeah, competitively, Prince Keleseth is a
down.
no.
All right,
Yeah.
moving on.
Okay, so uh, other news related to the expansion. They're going to be bringing back missions for this expansion. So players are going to battle their way through Ice Crown Citadel, the home of the Lich King, in order to get up to the Lich King finally and defeat the Lich King. No idea what the rewards are going to be,
I thought
but they said if you defeat the Lich King with all 9 classes, you'll receive a special reward.
they also said you get they gave me 3 wings and you get a pack for each completing each wing.
Oh, okay.
And they've also said that if you beat the Lich King, you get a free random legendary. You get one of the legendary Death Knights.
Huh.
So
That's pretty cool.
that's what they announced, and that's obviously really good for free-to-play players and newer players.
Yeah.
Combined with the uh, the legend update of you guaranteed a legend in the first 10 packs means that everybody's going to be guaranteed 2 legendaries, close to 2 legendaries, as soon as the expansion launches, which is obviously
A nice
really
start.
nice. And
Yeah.
I honestly think long time overdue from Blizzard. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
yeah.
more things like this, but this is definitely a good thing, And the fact that they're now including these missions for free is quite nice as well. Instead of making adventures where they release a wing once a week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're not gonna. Are they releasing them everything at once for all the wings, or are they gonna release them like on a weekly basis as well? Also something I'm not
Not as
sure about.
We're not sure about it at this point. I'm not. It's not as important though this time because they don't unlock cards. Like
Yes,
so
yes.
the main issue with when they were adventures was you literally had to play the wing quickly, obviously, and open the cards, and then for the expansion, you got a few new cards each week for like a month.
Yeah, which was really weird for competitive players trying to play tournaments and stuff, because
Yeah.
it's very difficult to adjust when you're getting like just a new set of cards every week.
Fork. 34.
Yeah, so it's definitely good, and I'm very happy to see this PvE kind of content coming back, right? It's a lot of fun, especially for players that aren't necessarily that focused on the competitive aspects. Gives them a lot more to do outside of tavern brawls and just playing ladder and arena. So, it's really nice. They've said that they're going to up the difficulty on this compared to previous normal modes, and that's largely because these aren't unlocking cards, right? So they're not a barrier for any newer players. It's okay if it takes them a bit longer to get there because they're getting packs. So there's a definitely. I mean, I imagine everyone should do these. Um, Unless you buy like 300 packs, then you probably don't need to bother. Um,
You should still do it for like,
yes,
uh,
you
like,
should
uh,
still do it, but
like as an exercise. Like I find these things to be very good
I know,
as
but
sort
I'm
of like.
saying if you're just throwing money at the game and don't care about the content, then sure, you could not do it, right? But otherwise, pretty much everyone I imagine will do it, and it's going to be pretty interesting. And they also, I think, are going to be having heroic as well. So for people that like the heroic challenge,
That's not fun.
which
Heroic
is, yeah,
play.
the heroic ones can be very fun. Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to also just being more difficult to normal ones because sometimes the previous expansions you could kind of close your eyes and click random cards and you'd win. That's how it felt a
Yeah,
lot of the time.
it is. Yeah, I mean, obviously some people did struggle, but for the most part, the normal versions of ones, you can complete with nearly any deck
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of the time, even if you're on free to play, which is obviously good in terms of the bow. But if you're looking for a challenge, at least the heroics would give you a bit of a run for your money sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think that's all the real news we have for the new expansion, right?
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
some speculation on some of the cards based on the pictures, but I don't think we're going to go through that. That's completely wild speculation at this point. I'll just put a link in the description for the video for that if
Yeah.
people want to read about the based purely on the trailer, which is may or may not at all be accurate. So
Because some cards haven't even ended up like in previous trailers. There've been pictures of cards that haven't actually ended up in expansion anyway. So
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next important piece of news for the upcoming week is we're expecting the Quest Rogue Cabins Below nerf to happen this week. So probably Tuesday night, I'd imagine. That seems to usually be their patching time. So we could well be in the last 2 days or day and a half of Quest Rogue now. So go get your Quest Rogue games in if you want to play them. Uh, it's at least sort of good that they're doing it very soon after the Shanghai because there's a lot of more uh, tournaments coming up. There's Titan R this week end, I think, and then there's DreamHack Valencia the weekend after. There's lots more esports coming up, and for those people, there's a lot on the line for them. So it's very important that Blizzard are, uh, have been relatively um, open about when it was going to happen, right? They just didn't want to do it whilst before Shanghai, obviously, as that would have been uh, quite an issue. So it's good. It's good that we're going to see it soon. Yeah. And then there
yeah.
is some other important news locally. Um, Quese have announced that there's going to be a big fireside gathering that they're going to be hosting at Rush in Johannesburg, which is like going to be like a gaming convention festival. If I'm not mistaken, it's run by the same people that run Rage every year. So um, obviously they've
Yeah.
got a lot of
Mag Rush.
expansion with that. Yeah, yeah. So I imagine, well, we're definitely both going to be there. I'm pretty sure. For you, it's easy enough because it's already in
Yeah.
Joburg. And for myself, I'm going to be there as well to cast the ESL playoff finals, the 1 to 4 playoff spots that we are going to see so the playoff for those 1 to 4 spots are going to be on the Saturday, I believe. So we're going to be casting directly from the event. It's going to be kitted out like a full tavern, and there's going to be over 30,000 rand worth of like prizes to win, 30,000 rand in cash, and various hardware prizes as well as a MSI gaming laptop. So I don't know if you want to just maybe uh, take the viewers through a little bit what the format's going to be for the Quest Fireside, and maybe
So
just
the far sides, there's three far sides, and basically they're going to be best of five with one ban. Bring four decks and ban one, and it's going to be last hero standing, which means if I play versus Dib and I win the first game, I have to keep the same deck and class. Dib can't use that deck for the rest of that series. But that's important to mention is there's going to be a lot of really cool, fun events happening. So whether you new, whether you're casual, whether you're competitive, come along. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, there's going to be, not just there's going to be side events. There's going to be like other activities, and there's going to be a lot of really cool things. It's going to be like, I think someone described it as a festival of Hearthstone.
yeah.
So I encourage anyone who's interested in Hearthstone, come along. It's going to be really, I'm really quite hyped for it. I'm quite excited.
Yeah, it is going to
Be
be
really good
very,
fun.
very exciting. And anyone that's in the Joburg, Pretoria, even maybe the greater Gauteng region should definitely come down for or come to
Get
the
a bunch of
event. It's going to
mates
be at the
together.
it's going to be at the Sandton Convention Center. And there's going to be a lot. There's also going to be alongside the main tournament. Every day the main tournament has 10,000 rand in prize money. So there's going to be 3 main tournaments split over the 3 days that are like each individual. So the Friday is
Yeah.
separate to the Saturday and separate to the Sunday. And then the winners the top two from each of those days will go into a playoff for the laptop on the Sunday.
Nice gaming.
Yeah, an MSI gaming laptop, which is probably worth, I'd say close to 10,000 rand at least. We haven't, I
Probably
haven't,
going to go up to 20 to 30 grand. Like
yeah,
most laptops,
probably.
like 30 grand.
Yeah, so
And even then,
we haven't seen exactly. I'm not sure
there's a
if I know
bunch of
exactly which of their models it is, but yeah,
there's a bunch of other esports happening as well. So like I think there's like there's also FIFA tournaments and CS:GO. I think I know there's a League of Legends qualifier or something. So
yeah,
like
there's definitely other
there's a whole
esports.
bunch of other esports as well. So even if
Yeah,
you get a bit bored of losing to RNG, you can go and check out some other games as well.
yeah, and there's also going to be a lot of side pods throughout the tournament. So if you enter into the main tournament, it's going to be free to enter. The only cost is just to get into the event as a whole. But as Pandemonium is saying, there's a lot at the event. It's not just the fireside. Um,
100 grand
and
for weekend pass, I believe. So it's not even
yeah,
that.
it's not very expensive either. Um, and even if you play in the main event, you try out your chances. See how far you can get. It's going to be Swiss as well, so if you don't fancy yourself as one of the best players, you don't think you're gonna come top three or win prize money. That's okay. Like one of the greatest things about Swiss is that you get to play as the rounds go further. You get to play people of your own skill. So if you think you're like an intermediate or newer player, then after a round or two, maybe you lose the first round, then you'll play somebody else that also lost. So that means that you're much more likely to match people of your own skill, and that's kind of when Hearthstone is at its most fun, right? When it's that uh, sort of close battle, and that's also how you learn and improve as a player. Like I know for me personally, Swiss was a big benefit when playing Magic the Gathering in the same way, right? Is that like when you start out, like you kind of suck. So it at least helps that you still get to keep playing even if you lose. That's one of the big things about
Yeah,
Swiss and one of the big things about a tournament like this, right?
you get to
But
play, you get to learn.
yeah,
Like and you get to interact with people because one of the main issues with any single elimination, double elimination is single elimination you lose one game, cheers.
yeah,
Like whereas this it encourages people to stay around to play, and then you can. I mean the whole idea is to encourage people. It's the whole idea of Fireside specifically is to encourage people to engage with your opponent, with people around you. You know, ask people who are better than you. Ask them for advice. Ask them for tips. Ask them. Talk to them. The whole a lot of this. I mean, yes, there's some really awesome prizes, but the whole thing is about building a community and
yeah.
about socializing and getting to know the other players.
Yeah, and supporting the organizers that have gone to, uh, it's been a lot of effort from them to try and organize and put this all together. And there's also going to be, let's say, a casual area with sort of ready set up PCs. So even if you've never played Hearthstone before, welcome, because I don't know how you found this podcast, but if you've never played Hearthstone before, or
Get your
if you're gonna
friends, get
if
your
you
family.
yeah, if you're gonna bring along friends or whatever that have never played before and you want to get them interested, well, they can come along and play on some of the PCs that MSI, I believe, are going to be providing.
And we're going to be
And
there to help you guys.
yeah, and those are going to have some already like mid-level card collections on, so players can play with that and learn the game with a decent set of cards already, and then before they get into starting their own collection. And for the event, there's also going to be side pods. So if you are losing and want to drop from the main pod, there's going to be side pods throughout the day that will play sort of as they fill up. So as you get to like 6 to 10 people, whatever, they're gonna play a little side pod for just maybe some like hardware prizes, right? Some peripherals or maybe something like that.
Maybe you need new headset. Maybe you need new mouse. Maybe you need new
Yeah, I mean,
keyboard.
and those things are, gaming peripherals can be kind of expensive. So that's an easy 500 to 1,000 rand depending on the peripherals. So,
Oh, exactly.
that's a pretty good prize as well. And all the top players are going to be playing for that hard cash prize money. So even if you don't fancy yourself as one of the top players, you could easily walk away with some peripherals, which is more than worth the 100 rand entry fee.
Exactly. And not to mention, I think there's going to be a lot of other stores and things as well. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's a land. I think it's like a little bit like a mini expo.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really great. So
Yeah.
and it's really
Um,
exciting that Hearthstone is kind of one of the
the
quite a big event at this at the LAN as well.
Yeah,
So
so it's
I'm
pretty
quite
much one of
excited.
the premier events. And if you are wondering in terms of devices, The idea is that because Hearthstone can be played on phone, tablet, or laptop, PC, whatever. The idea is to bring your own device for that part of it. There will be some laptops there, as we mentioned, but ideally most people should be bringing their own devices, which shouldn't be too hard. As hopefully you can probably play on your phone and get that Hearthstone in usually whilst you're on the toilet, but in this case, in
So
public.
make sure, the usual, make sure it's updated, make sure you
Yeah, yeah.
journey.
So yeah, make sure it's updated before you come. I mean, there will be internet connection there, but it can sometimes be a problem if everyone has to update. So ideally, make sure it's updated beforehand. And I'll put a link in the description for the video, and you can find out more information there to the or more information there from the Quest website for this fireside the full comprehensive rules, and also, as you'll see, there's an enter now button for if you want to preemptively sign up, which I don't believe is necessary, but it is ideal so we can get an idea, or so they can get an idea of numbers and have a better idea of how to schedule the day's events and whatnot.
Because like Swiss is can we get tricky with like 500 people.
Yeah. I mean, if we get 500 people, I'll be very, very happy, but it is going to be a nightmare for the admins. But 500 people, we can still do it with Swiss. That's the beauty of Swiss, right? So it's 500 people single elimination. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that in a single day. Swiss, you could at least do something. Like, yeah. Anyway, um, so that's the big happenings locally in South Africa, and I mean, I would encourage other people from the rest of Africa, if you're going to be in South Africa, to come down and enjoy it. It's going to be a big event. Um, and yeah, I mean, we're going to be casting the ESL African Championship, the culmination of season one. Those players are also playing for a large prize money at $3,000 for first, and that's easily over 30,000 Rand. Those players are playing for a lot of money. We're going to see the three Algerian players playing against Scythe. So that's Saliom, Exia, who was on the podcast previously, and Expert Summer, and Scythe. Those are the four players that have qualified for that playoffs. So on the Saturday, we're going to be casting that live from the event. So you can also drop down to the event to meet us. We're both going to be there, obviously. Um, and yeah, come say hello. If you watch a podcast or whatever, let us know. Um, I have yet to meet any people that watch the podcast that I didn't already know in person, so that would be cool. um, so yeah, uh, that is definitely going to be a really cool event that I'm looking forward to on the 21st to the 23rd of July. We didn't actually mention the dates yet, but yeah, 21st to the 23rd of July, so 2 weekends time. And Quest Rogue will be nerfed, so you won't have to worry about it then.
Although J-Druid might be the next problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it's going to be an interesting point in the meta. There's obviously going to be big reveals the week after. So it's also going to be like a celebration for Journey to Angora, right? Before we start getting too filled with spoilers and looking ahead towards.
Celebration of Journey to Angora.
Yeah, it is, right? It's the
To be
last
very
weekend.
fair,
It's the
it'll
last
be the
weekend
journey
before
from
the
Angora.
big spoilers start.
So because it's afterwards, it'll be journey from Angora.
No, no, Journey from Angora is like how we get to Northrend. Like we're still in Angora. We're like this is the culmination of our journey. We're partying in Angora, right?
Journey in
No, it was it's a culmination of the journey to Angora. Ah. Anyway,
Angora.
before we get too stuck into arguing semantics, yeah,
God.
it is definitely going to be a really fun event. So pop down and come join us. And then that's pretty much all we have for the news segment for today. The other big events that happened over the weekend was obviously the HCT Spring Championships. So, do you want to just give us a quick 2 minute explanation of what the Spring Championships are, Panamania?
Okay, so the Championships is basically the seasonal championships. It acts as the springboard to qualify for BlizzCon. The top four players of the Spring Championships make it to the World Championships. Well, the World Championships, which were previously at BlizzCon. And to qualify for that, basically, you had to go through. There was a whole qualifying. There were the playoffs, but basically, so you had four players from the four different regions from Europe, from North America, from APAC, and from China, and they went through like a group stage, double elimination group stages, and then from the top eight they had single elimination, and we saw some thoroughly enjoyable Hearthstone.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it was held in Shanghai, China. Unfortunately, none of the Chinese players made it out, made it
Yeah.
into the top eight. They all got
Yeah.
knocked out.
One of the big stories was really the poor performance from the Chinese players. 1
Yeah,
and 8, I believe, was the overall record for Chinese players in
yeah.
series wins, and that's pretty horrible. I mean,
The
there's
sad part
some,
is a lot of them are good players. Like,
yeah, there's like very notable players. I mean, like X Hope won the EU versus CN. I mean, EU was definitely by far the dominant region this weekend, and X Hope beat a lot of those players, like Calento, on his way to winning the Ferrari in the EU versus CN. So they are definitely very notable players, the Chinese players. But I think one of the things we did kind of find out a little bit today is that there was, I think, a little bit of mess up in maybe the organization on that side, and that they kind of only found out a day before deck submission that it was only going to be maybe best of five conquest, maybe rather than best of seven that they expected. Or I think they really only found details about the format a bit late, and that really, really hurts your preparation. And preparation for an event like this is super, super key. A lot of the event like this, where most of the players are at a really high level, it comes down to preparation and building a lineup that is going to beat the meta, predicting the meta. And I mean, we saw in some groups like Group
some
D,
guys,
where Jason Zhou and Trebsred just had lineups that were atrocious against Anton RDU. And even
yeah,
though Anton RDU might be your favorites to get out of that group anyway, they were clear favorites with the lineups, and they
yeah.
kind
Unfortunately
of
for Jason,
cruised to that group basically to get through in first and second.
yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, I think they even interviewed Jason Zhao, and I mean, he's a really good player, and they even like, he was even saying, like the prize I'm looking at is coming last in my group, because he knew, I think as soon as he saw his group and the deck list, he knew that he made a wrong call, and like even before,
Mm,
and this is, where the next level of thinking comes in is even before the tournament starts,
yeah,
he knew that he was in a bad place.
yeah.
Like
And I
this
mean,
is the thing.
you can do whatever you can in those days between knowing the groups and the deck lists and actually having to play your games, right? You can practice matchups as much as you want,
Fine,
but
but stats
when
are stats.
yeah, you can't change your decks, you can't change anything there. So sometimes then you just end up with a lineup that's really unfortunate. And against players like Anton RDU, they're not likely to mess up very often. And I mean, spoilers ahead now for anyone that hasn't watched it. I would definitely encourage you to go ahead and watch the VODs. I mean, because of the time zone difference, I pretty much watch all of it via VODs and try to keep as spoiler free as possible. And I know Panamunio is trying to do the same, although clearly he's been fully spoiled now.
Yeah, like
Um,
for me, I enjoy watching them for the games and like the more the technical aspect. So for me, I don't even mind. Like I look like as soon as the results are out, I actually check the results. So
yeah.
like I'm not big into this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really affect me if I know who wins before I've even watched the first video. I still watch them
I,
for
I
the,
find that
the
like I bias myself more into thinking who's ahead in the game if I know who actually won, right? So like
yeah.
I find it harder to uh properly analyze a game when I know who's won. And also like there is
Right.
certain tension, right? Like we saw RDU's or Calento's reverse sweep over RDU after being 2-0 down. In that one in particular was ruined in the group for me by Zaymok. And that one was like at 2-0 up, RDU looked destined to win and go qualify to the World Championship, and then Calento managed to pull that one back from 2-0
Yeah,
down.
I haven't watched that one yet. So I heard I heard Clinton got quite lucky in some of those.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely. He yeah, in the one Questroid game, he basically got prep off the top to not lose the game, and therefore, you know, actually keep his hopes alive in the series. I think that was a 2-1 or something like that. But yeah, anyway, Um, so the top players that made it to the top eight were Citizen Nappa, Hoy, Mage, and Kuonet, Nyria, RDU, and Kalento. And then from there, it was one game to make it through to the top four where they would have qualified for the World Championships, which, to be honest, for most of these players is the major prize. That's
Yeah.
really what it's about, getting to the World Championships and proving themselves on the absolute biggest stage for Hearthstone. And that was heavily dominated by European players. We saw pretty much in every game where a European player could make it, they did. So Hoy managed to beat Citizen Napa, and beat Mage in the only non-European like game. Nyria
Yeah.
beat Kuonet, and Kalento beat RDU in the all Korean, sorry, the all European game. So three out of the top four going through being the European players. And I mean, we did say if you want packs, the European players were good ones to pick as
Yeah.
your champion before. So at least it feels good that our advice there from a previous episode was solid advice. Even if I didn't actually end up picking in at all because I was still umming and ahhing between like Hoy and RDU, and
And
I should have gone with Hoy.
I actually went like I told like what's really amusing is I told everyone go choose RDU I mean choose EU. I went for like a sort of a fringy outside pick. It got me 2 packs, but not as much as if I just gone with the fan favorite of like Colento or
Yeah,
RDU
I
or
mean,
Hoy, I would
Kalento
have
would have
got
got you max packs. So,
exactly.
yeah, Kalento managed to beat Nyria in the all-Ukrainian semi-final. Not something I think we're going to see very often, especially out from the European countries where there's a lot wider spread of the actual countries that you see. I'd say the only other country that I'd say that's likely to happen with is maybe like Sweden or Russia. Those are the kind of the only other two countries I can think that have multiple standouts top Hearthstone players. Maybe
Yeah.
Germany, but I mean, I think Zixo is kind of a little bit far ahead of most of the other German players. Maybe like Sintelol. It's kind of anyway. So in an all Ukrainian semi-final, Kalento managed to best Naria to make it through to the final where he faced off against Hoy that beat Ant. And Hoy then managed to 3-0 both the final, the semi-final before that, and 3-1 to the quarterfinal. So he went 9-1 in
Uh,
the top eight, which
and
is a ridiculous record. And I mean, I must say, Hoy played like almost flawlessly, I would say. Like I certainly didn't pick up much in the way of errors. So you know, Hoy, like a big shout out to or big hats off to him. He played like absolutely stunningly this weekend. And if you want to go
his
see
tech
some,
choices though, like some of his like for me, some of the interesting tech choices, like in his Pirate Warrior, like double Spellbreaker, for example.
yeah, just to be more consistent, and just because of like the amount of taunt that there is, especially with the double primordial drakes in a lot of decks, the double spellbreaker is useful sometimes to get through both of the taunts. Uh,
Exactly. And
s-
you're not that shy to use the first one a lot more liberally, right? If you know there's a second one.
yeah, and obviously when you're more likely to draw it in those events that you do just need it, right? So that helps with the consistency. I mean, a lot of people talk about Pyro Warrior, an easy deck or whatever, whatever. But like Hoy piloted that deck far better than you're gonna see anyone else on ladder piloting that deck. So, you know, if you're only managing to reach rank 5 or rank 10 with Pyro Warrior and you want to learn how to improve, well, go watch Hoy because that was some of
Shows
the
you how to play it well.
most ridiculous Pyro Warrior piloting in a meta that I don't think was particularly great for Pyro Warrior. Lots of aggro druid, lots of token shaman, decks that generally do pretty decently against Pyro Warrior. So yeah, he piloted all his decks exceptionally well, and I mean this was a good last hurrah to Caverns Below as well as every rogue that was at the tournament was Quest Rogue. It's a bit fun. It's a bit weird to say it was in reaction to knowing that the quest was going to be nerfed that they all then well maybe the deck must be OP. So even if I haven't played it that much more, I'm going to play it a lot more now, and then I'm definitely going to take it. Or was it a case of players already knowing that and then being like, oh, okay, well, whatever, I'm still going to play it because it'll still be fine. Um, you know, so interesting seeing that pretty much there was only, well, there was six of the 9 classes represented well, and then there was just Priest with just X Hope running his Lyra combo Priest. A little bit along the lines of what we were talking about earlier with that Light Warden. That's why I say 6 of the 9 represented well. No Hunters and no Warlocks, and just the one Priest. Um, but I think the distribution of wins for across the classes was also pretty even, which was interesting to see. There wasn't any super dominant classes.
Yeah,
Um,
unlike some previous, previous events we've seen, most notably was it last year where I think 16 out of 16 players brought Shaman.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly classes that were represented more than others, but the overall win rates of classes in the matchups wasn't like any super dominant standouts, which is interesting to see. And yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage anyone to go back and watch it. That's some of the best Hearthstone I've seen in what's been a very busy year this year for Hearthstone. We've had lots of like dream hacks and house cups in various forms. And it's been like a crazy last few weekends. I mean, we keep bringing you more and more tournaments or news every week, which just shows you it's pretty much Hearthstone every weekend these days, which is great for players that are in the competitive scene. It gives them more options and certainly more options around the world. So it was great to see. This is just probably the peak we're going to see for a few months at least.
and also what's really nice is the fact that like especially the casting. I think like a lot, like I enjoy guys like Frodan and Sottle and Raven. So like, and they explain like I find that like particularly them in particular, they explain things well. So even if you want to learn, you watch them, and
Mm.
yes, even though I think it's always like a good exercise to always think about what would you do in that situation. You also sometimes hear the commentary and you hear, kind of to try and get a different perspective on, like some of the thinking and how you know how do you approach a matchup is sometimes very important to how you play your cards early on.
Yeah,
Saving certain cards
yeah.
for
I
later on,
mean,
having a plan.
especially for players that or people that don't tend to watch competitive Hearthstone that much. This was a is a great gateway drug into Hearthstone esports, I would say, as the casters tend to be a little bit more explanatory. They cast a little at a little bit more of an accessible level, I would say,
Yeah,
to newer players because they're aware that this is one of the biggest events in the year and therefore is going to attract a lot more casual and newer players. So if you, yeah, if the competitive Hearthstone, maybe you watch like the House Cup and then you've got all these pros talking and you're like, wait, what the hell are they talking about half the time? Well,
yeah,
this
it's
is
like
also
next
a great
level.
event to watch for this, top level Hearthstone and really great casting as well. And I must say the Chinese crowd were like pretty amazing. It was sort of no surprise really. They had it in a place like Shanghai when you can get big crowds like that at like a huge venue. And as you were saying a bit earlier, there was all the sort of well, I think that was before we went live, but there's lots of like side stuff there, like a puzzle for the new expansion, and like stuff with the streamers, and
Yeah,
like
they had like a lot
Eloise
of
and Disguised Toast, and people like that were there, and sort of people battling the Hearthstone devs. So it was like a really cool festival kind of event, and um, so it was really interesting to see, how passionate the Chinese fans were about Hearthstone.
yeah. It was great. It's great. It's great to see. Like professional level production. I mean, obviously, there's the video. There were obviously some glitches here and there,
Mm.
but overall, at a world class event. Fireworks. They had they had the translator there. It was quite amusing though to watch that poor
Oh.
Ali having to like he would have to like he would speak to the player, then you'd have to like stop them, translate to the crowd, and then like go
Mm.
back and forth.
And he was
And
like he was translating himself as well most of the
yeah,
time, right? Because he's
then he would
talking
ask
in
questions as
Chinese so that the crowd knows what he's asking, and then he has to then say it in English to the
player.
player most of the time, and then he says it back in Chinese to the crowd. And from what I heard, a bunch of the translations were not necessarily the most accurate in the world, as he was kind of trying to sell the player to the crowd a lot. It
Yeah,
was definitely something he was doing was more focusing on getting the crowd amped up, and he was asking the very baity questions like, "How much do you love China now?" to like somebody like Hoya or whatever,
yeah.
after they like win. And then like, he just wants them to be like, "Oh, China's the greatest," so to get the crowd all hyped, and it was
The most amusing though was So what's it? It was Kuanet. We interviewed him, and Kuanet, I think, responded in like answered him in Mandarin,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So obviously the crowd understands, but then it's really amusing because now this translator now has to all of a sudden for the cameras and everything has to now translate it. And I think he was actually like the first time I think he was kind of caught a bit off guard that this guy didn't speak English.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
I
he
mean,
just wanted to do.
he probably knew beforehand, but because there weren't really many Chinese players that won, there wasn't really any need for him to have other interviews with Chinese players, right? So that was kind of the Kuonet was kind of the only Chinese speaking player that
Yeah, because
kind of
all
won it
the, I
all.
mean, Mage, it was amusing because Mage and who has like Mage had like a thick Australian accent, and even says Napa, it's like these Chinese looking guys rock up, and then they have like these thick Australian accents.
Yeah, I'd say Citizen Napper's accent was a lot stronger than Mage's, but anyway, um,
I just
yeah,
find that
so
quite
it was it was quite an amusing. Um, It was definitely, it's definitely not an easy job though
yeah,
for
yeah.
Ali there. So
And you can even see, I'm not sure how much Hearthstone he plays. He was even like, I like some in between. He was like, yeah, so you're just genius. You're just amazing at this game, or
yeah, well, that's what like, that he was
yeah,
trying to pander to the crowd, right? He was trying to get the players to say exactly what the crowd wanted. But yeah, I
exactly,
mean, overall, it was a great event.
exactly.
I don't really want to go. We might do some more like analysis of the games, I think, later, but that's sort of beyond the scope of this podcast, I would say. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and you'll see if we manage to get time to do that. And also uh, follow on follow
Social
on
media.
Twitter, yeah, and on Twitch to find when we go live, and then you'll be able to see just like just when I stream normally very often I also get Pandemonia alongside and either coach him or get him to coach me. I say coach, but me I just co-op ladder and stuff, as it's more fun like that. Yeah, so follow us on Twitter. I am at dib_gaming and Pandemonia is at Dale Pon. Um, yeah,
Any
so any
Facebook
other
links?
yeah, you also have a Facebook. I have not bothered setting mine up, to be honest. Uh, oh, actually, I have one. It's just not a public page yet because I don't do anything with it because it's hard enough managing YouTube and Twitter. Um, so, any other shout outs you want to give? Well, what's your Facebook page details?
Pandemonium as well.
Okay, so
Yeah,
spelt with the 3 and the 0, as you can
yeah.
see up there.
I think you'll put it in the link later. I mean, you'll put it in
The description, yeah, sure.
the.
Um, Yeah. So yeah, any other shout outs or whatever that you want to give? Any other closing notes before we sign off for what's been another long podcast tonight?
I'm super amped for the Rush Lamb.
Yeah.
So if you have any debates, just if you're in the Joburg area, even if you're out of town, get a bunch of mates, make it a road trip.
Yeah.
Just let's get this thing going because this is one of the bigger events we liked for a long time. It'd be really great to have a big turnout. I think.
Yeah, and if we get lots of people turning out, it's certainly going to encourage the organizers to host more events in the future as well. So,
Exactly.
yeah, definitely going to be an interesting event. And
Until next time.
yeah, until next time, cheerio, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.